Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Tianlu. Coming up in this edition. An Israeli delegation is in Cairo for talks on the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire. The US business community is opposing the Trump administration's tariff threats. And a funeral has been held for the victims of the fire at a ski resort in Turkiye. We begin in the Middle East. Egyptian sources say an Israeli security delegation was in Cairo on Wednesday to continue negotiations on implementing the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire for hostages deal. The sources say the issues discussed included the reopening of the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing to allow the passage of injured Palestinians. The talks also addressed the presence of Israeli troops in the Philadelphia corridor on the Gaza-Egypt border, with Israel seeking a partial withdrawal while Egypt insists on a full one. Security officials from both sides also discussed a further swap of Israeli hostages held by Hamas and Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails based on the terms of the deal. The Gaza ceasefire agreement has been in effect for 5 days. The UN says over 800 aid trucks entered Gaza on Wednesday as Palestinians returned home. Rami Al-Magari has more from Han Yunus.
The challenge is the fact that let us start with one important fact that the United Nations has been able to bring into the territory, to bring some truckloads that are new, because of the truckloads are depleted here in the territory for the past 15 months, no repair, no spare part, so more truckloads are needed. Also, let us refer here to the heavy equipment brought from the Egyptian side to pave the road around the Rafah crossing terminal for the truckloads to enter smoothly in the territory. One of the main challenges that the Gaza Strip is facing now, the main challenging actually and the key one, is the repair of the infrastructure, and especially in the southern Gaza Strip town or city of Rafah, where the municipality has already started some pavement and some repair of the roads, some repair of the water wells for the people. A few water wells can be repaired basically for the water to run into the population, the homes that have been left intact because of the intensive Israeli operations for more than 8 months now in Rafah city. The other challenges facing the Gaza Strip is the fact that many of those people who have been, many corpses have been taken out from the rubble. Dozens of corpses have been taken out from the rubble. People are grieving their beloved ones. And also, let me just mention that a few people or a few households have been able to return to their residential places in the south of the Gaza Strip. Actually, this is the main challenges that the Palestinians here are facing under the widespread destruction of the territory because of the 15-month-long Israeli war on the Gaza Strip. They are looking forward to getting back. Some hundreds of thousands of people looking forward to going back to their residential homes in the northern Gaza Strip and Gaza City, starting from Saturday, when Hamas is supposed actually to release 4 women hostages from the Israeli women's hostages on Saturday, and the people will begin returning back to their battered homes, battered neighborhoods actually in Gaza City and northern Gaza Strip.
That was Rami Al-Magari reporting. Israel has launched major military operations in the West Bank despite the ceasefire in Gaza. Israeli forces have confirmed the killing of 10 Palestinians in Jenin. Locals say they witnessed blocked streets and more.
Life is harder than you can imagine. The roads are blocked with dirt and stones. The ambulance can't get there, nor can the civil defense. My house is close by, but I can't get there because the army is nearby, and there is a sniper. Anyone who gets too close is exposed to being shot.
At first, we were not allowed to enter the hospital. After a while, the ambulance crews were allowed to enter to deliver the patients, but the patients inside were not allowed to leave. We dealt with many injuries. Some injuries were very serious. The fate of others, we don't know. Entry to Jenin Hospital is not allowed because Israeli army vehicles are blocking the entrance.
The situation inside Jenin Hospital is like a prison. Patients and companions are prisoners inside. There is no food and medicine is about to run out. I have been at work for 36 hours and I managed to get out after difficult coordination.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the country launched the operations to eradicate what he describes as terrorism. Jonathan Regev has more from Tel Aviv.
So we just heard comments from Defense Minister Israel Katz saying that the same offensive notion that the army applied in Gaza and in Lebanon will now be applied in the West Bank. And an interesting comment from Israel Katz, he says that as opposed to what happened in Gaza, the army is not intending to operate in an area and then leave that area and allow militant cells to grow again, but to be present at all times. Of course, the Israeli army is present in the West Bank, not so much in Area A, which is an area which is has both civilian and security control on paper given to the Palestinian Authority. But according to Defense Minister Israel Katz, the army wants to be present at all times to make sure that even after an operation ends and after the Israeli army, at least the plan is to eradicate the militant cells, then those cells do not grow back again. Another comment from Israel Katz, he said that the operation, which now began in Jenin, may spill over to other areas of the West Bank. Jenin, of course, being pretty much the militant capital of the West Bank, with cells belonging mostly to Islamic Jihad, but also to Hamas, very active in the area. The Israeli operation, we have to say, began just as a previous operation, one led by the Palestinian Authority in the same area, ended. For about 6 weeks, the Palestinian Authority was operating in the area of Jenin, but the results probably were not satisfying as far as Israel is concerned, and that is why the decision was to engage in a major operation in the area of Jenin. For the moment, Palestinian sources speak of 10 people killed, many more injured. Palestinian sources also say that many of those killed were not involved in any militant activity. Israel, of course, contradicts that, saying that practically all of those targeted are militants, and at least judging by the words of the defense minister, this operation will continue for days and days to come.
Now it's Jonathan Regev reporting. Turning to the U.S., the U.S. business community says it does not welcome the Trump administration's tariff threats. Michael Hart is the president of the American Chamber of Commerce in China. He says a fair and healthy trade relationship between China and the U.S. benefits both sides.
In general, we're not in favor of tariffs and restrictions. And what I hope more than anything is that when the Trump administration comes in, they continue to have dialogues with various stakeholders in China, because of course we represent nearly 800 member companies who are here, who are active, and who have a lot to gain from positive, fair trade back and forth.
President Donald Trump has said his administration is discussing imposing additional tariffs on goods imported from China as soon as next month. The U.S. military will send 1,500 additional active duty troops to the border with Mexico. It will bring the total number of troops at the southern border to almost 4,000. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order suspending the entry of migrants into the country through the border. Many stranded migrants are assessing the operations. Alastair Beverstock has more from Mexico.
After fleeing gangsters in her native Colombia, it took Daisy Ortiz and her 3-year-old son 8 months to reach Mexico's border with the US, struggling every step of the way.
It was horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Mexico is very dangerous, and we had to fight, beg for money, sell sweets at stoplights, sleep on the streets. You can't believe how hard life is as a migrant until you've lived it.
But she felt a burst of renewed hope once she finally reached Tijuana and could see California beyond the border wall. Then came the news Monday that her asylum appointment had been cancelled following Donald Trump's inauguration. It was almost too much to bear.
I cried a lot, having your hopes dashed, having to start all over again, worrying over my little one's future, whose life is only just beginning.
Daisy isn't alone. It's estimated some 270,000 asylum hopefuls waiting in Mexico had their hopes dashed Monday, among them Erika Juarez from Peru.
It's very sad. We have been through so much. Hunger, sleeping in the streets. My heart is very broken.
For many migrants, reaching the border city of Tijuana represents the end of a journey of thousands of kilometers. The question of what to do now and where to go is causing a lot of anxiety here in the US-Mexico border region. With legal pathways closed to them, Joao Chavez from Peru says many migrants are now considering ways around the law.
Everyone is looking at how to enter the US illegally, finding smugglers, looking for gaps in the wall, routes over the mountains. These thoughts go through your mind when you're penned in. You look for extreme options.
With many migrants unwilling to retrace their steps and fearful of remaining in Mexico, human smugglers operating in the border region may find 2025 to be a banner year for their illicit trade.
Now it's Alastair Beverstrock reporting. A fast-moving brush fire has erupted in Los Angeles County, expanding to nearly 8,100 acres with no containment. The Hughes fire has crossed into Ventura County. Tens of thousands of residents are under mandatory evacuation orders. Los Angeles County has been inundated with deadly blazes, with 2 large ones killing 28 people and destroying thousands of structures. Meteorological authorities have warned that high winds will continue in Southern California, further inhibiting firefighting efforts. It is Tiansen has more.
The worst may be over for residents coping with the Los Angeles fires, but for some victims who've lost everything, it has just begun.
I have a 1-year-old baby. How do I get food for him? We lost our house, our jobs, everything. We're staying together with 3 families in one house with my cousin.
People like Celeste Ramirez had no place to turn, but then her community came together to help. Through word of mouth and social media, makeshift donation centers have popped up in recent weeks.
Just friends asking friends for help. My friend came with the tacos, they came with theirs, and all this is people just been pulling up, donating stuff, and we're just passing it out.
Rafael Rodriguez used to deliver mail to this community, but he lost his job when the neighborhood was destroyed. He now collects donations to provide free food.
Food for everybody, whoever's in need of food, waters, everything. I mean, we have everything here, clothes, everything's free for the community of Altadena and Pasadena.
Much needed help for families whose lives have been thrown into complete chaos.
This is so overwhelming, especially when you have little children. How do you even explain it to them as a grown-up that in one day you close and open your eyes and Mother Nature has taken away everything that you worked so hard to build over a long time? That now we have to go out on the street to look for help? That we brought them to this country, the country of opportunities, so they could have a better future. Now we don't know what our future looks like here.
What to put on the table at night, she says, is the most they can plan for now.
Now it is Tencent reporting. In Asia, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has attended the 4th hearing of his impeachment trial at the Constitutional Court. The court began the trial on December the 27th to review an impeachment motion over Yoon's failed martial law bid. The anti-corruption agency has reportedly decided to refer his case to the prosecution. Shinhan has more.
The 4th hearing in the president's impeachment trial, and all eyes will be focusing on the very first witness that's been called in these hearings, namely the former defense minister, Kim Yong-hyun, is appearing, in fact, in these hearings right now. And much of the focus will be on the circumstances and sort of the details surrounding the adoption of this martial law decree that was drafted allegedly by the former defense minister. If you remember, the martial law decree had clauses in there calling for the prohibition of any political activity or any sort of gatherings by labor unions, also the prohibition and the limitation of the media and publications there. So there have been arguments on both sides saying that the former defense minister drafted this and the president may have just skimmed through it, and the parliamentary attorneys will be focusing on whether the president actually read through it. And he is the one, of course, that called for this martial law decree, so he would be able to take responsibility for that. The other focus is on an alleged note that was supposedly passed on to the finance minister, the current acting president, Choi Sang-mok. And in that, what's alleged is that the president had called for an extra budget in the case that the parliament was not able to function in its own capacity. So this is the first time we're seeing the former defense minister and the President Yoon Suk-yeol, meeting face-to-face since that martial law decree. And it'll be interesting to see how their arguments shape up together.
That was Shane Ham reporting. Finally, in Europe, Turkey has held a funeral for the victims killed in a fire at a popular ski resort in the country's northwest. The government also declared Wednesday as the National Day of Mourning. The fire at the Kartalkaya ski resort killed 79 people. Search and rescue operations at the site have concluded. 11 people, including the hotel owner, are in custody. Local residents have expressed shock, with many citing negligence as a key factor. Mihal Badvid has more.
Many Turks are still in shock over the tragedy that unfolded in Kartalkaya in the early morning hours on Tuesday, when dozens lost their lives in a massive fire at the Grand Kartal Hotel, a popular ski resort. Officials are continuing DNA tests to confirm the identification of the victims. Grieving friends and families gathered at funerals in Bolu, joined by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who attended to extend his condolences.
There are truly no words to describe this. We're really devastated. It happened so suddenly. The fact that it involved other family members as well adds even more grief for all of us. We're here to share their pain, but unfortunately, there is nothing else we can do.
One friend of a victim recalls the moment she realized her neighbor was missing.
My son received a photo from them the night before the accident, so we knew they were visiting. In the morning, we woke up unaware that they had stayed overnight. When we saw the news of the fire, we wondered if they were still there. After we called and couldn't reach them, we realized they had stayed at the hotel. My neighbors for 25 years. Our children grew up together. We are so sad. We never expected something like this. I don't even know what to say.
Workers from nearby hotels also witnessed the fire in horror.
We woke up at 6 a.m. and we didn't know about it. It had apparently started during the night. Like everyone else, we are very sad because there has been such a great loss of life. It's incredibly tragic, especially because most of them were children. Due to the school holiday, many of the victims were kids, which makes it even more heartbreaking.
The tragedy sent shockwaves across the nation, with reports that fire alarms didn't go off and sufficient safety measures were lacking.
I see this as a result of negligence. There was definitely negligence because this fire should have been prevented before it grew to this extent.
11 people, including the hotel owner, the deputy mayor of Bolu province, and the head of the municipality's fire department, have been detained as part of the investigation.
That was Mihal Badvid reporting. Now recapping today's headlines. An Israeli delegation is in Cairo for talks on the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire. The US business community is opposing the Trump administration's tariff threats. And a funeral has been held for the victims of the fire at a ski resort in Turkey. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Tianlu. Thank you for listening.